Excellent Associates. My name is JB Bush, and I'm going to be your guide through this content. But before we get started, I just want to go over a few housekeeping items with you. Number one, today's session is being recorded and will be available on demand later this afternoon. Also, some of you who might have noticed that we're using a new platform. You have the option to resize any of the windows on your screen to fit your preference simply by dragging the corner. Also, you can see several icons across the bottom of your screen. If you hover over them, you will see what additional information they provide. Lastly, I'll be happy to address any questions at the end of this session. If you have them, please feel free to type them into the Q&A window on the left-hand side of your screen, and I will address them. So let's jump in. Your checklist for closing opportunities this quarter. Rarely do I find that closing a sale is based on the lack of salespeople not being able to ask for it. Almost all of us have that skill to ask for the order. But as you know, there is an entire process or sales cycle that must precede that question. And in order to get to yes, we need to be certain we've completed certain tasks, uncovered key components necessary to win the business. It's the culmination of this relationship that results in the end of the sales cycle. So in order to make certain that we've been through all the necessary steps, I'm going to give you 10 simple questions that you can ask yourself on each of your opportunities, followed by some tactics and strategies that you can deploy if any one of the answers to these questions is a no, or you know what, I'm not sure. I'm going to talk about some specific tactics to advance and close the deal. Everyone we speak with, managers, sales professionals, account managers, marketing professionals, everybody wants to increase their win rates and the ratios associated with them. So we find that rarely is it the courage to ask for the order or the lack of effort, because we all know we're putting in a ton of effort to get our deals in the door. It's typically that we missed something along the way and thought that the opportunity was truly more qualified than it truly was. So to ensure our time together is a good use of your time and to confirm what I'm going to be taking us through is relevant, I'm going to ask you to play with me. Reach a little to make some connections. So I want you to think of an opportunity, a key deal, one that's critical for you to get in this quarter or maybe even Q1 of next year, and get that in your mind. Think about all the moving parts, the individuals involved, the timing, what you know, what you think you know. You get the point. But try and put yourself in the customer's shoes. Was there something they thought or knew that wasn't clear from your perspective, that possibly it was assumed and not confirmed? That way, as we go through our questions here, you'll get a feel what we're going to ask you and inspect this deal. And it's going to be kind of a David Letterman-esque tribute where we're going to take you through a top 10, starting with 10 leading all the way down to number 1. So let's quickly review our rationalization process that all of our prospects go through, either intuitively or cognitively, to be convinced to buy from us. The first, there's two processes in every opportunity, the way that we sell, but also the way our customers make buying decisions. And at the top of that, whenever they make a decision to release funds or invest or do something differently, there has to be a reason to change. It's not necessarily a technology issue, not necessarily a process issue. We call this a business issue. And it's those issues that organizations are challenged with to grow revenues, increase profitability. They might start with their own personal mission or challenge that's been handed to them by senior management. And the only way our clients are going to make a decision is if there is a measurable impact on the business that justifies the investment. So this is what we're going to go through. We're going to test this because they go through a multi-dimensional buying process. So it begs the question, and when we engage with them, do we truly understand that number one reason to change, what we call the business issue? Do we understand the problems our buyer and organizations are facing to make that business issue a reality? Do we understand the other solutions they're considering, or even the status quo? Do we know the value or the business impact if we're successful in implementing our capabilities to help and address that? From the power perspective, do we know all the people that might be involved with that? And then lastly, the plan piece. for those of you on the call who are familiar with the value sign framework, it maps directly to this. What we're trying to do is just get a better understanding. What do we know from our customer's perspective, and are there any gaps or opportunities that might be stalling the opportunity? So let's jump in. First question, are we at power? Are we working with individuals that have the authority and access to the level of funds we're asking for? Does their title fit the amount of money we're asking for? Have we overtly asked them? Are there other people with the same title in other organizations that have been able to spend this much? We're trying to get a gauge of what's real and what isn't. Trying to find out, are we truly dealing with somebody who can say yes, or simply clinging to a coach or a sponsor that we're asking to sell internally for us? The second point, many of you have told me over the years, is we've been selling our solutions through an evaluation or a committee. That once our solution gets selected, they throw the responsibility for a proposal over the cubicle to procurement. Not very much fun. At that point, we're now working with a whole new power base, whose business issue is simply to secure the best price they can from us. Of course, this conflicts directly with our business issue, and that's to meet our revenue goals by securing the best price. If this is the case, if we've been thrown over the fence to procurement, we're at risk. In some organizations, there's nothing we can do about it because procurement won't allow the true power person, the one who will actually be using our services, to influence that process. But in many other organizations, that we deal with these on a daily basis, if we're selling high enough, those people in power can absolutely pull rank on procurement. And I've been involved in all kinds of deals many times where this is true. So we need to consider ways to partner with power prior to getting to procurement so we don't get stuck there. So question number one, looking at our deals, and are we truly dealing with somebody who can make the decision-making process and go from there? Question number two, what is our prospect's reason to change? One of my observations in inspecting opportunities over the last 9 months with clients I work with is that many of us think we understand the prospect's business issue, when really what we've uncovered is just a laundry list of problems and technical challenges. So when looking at our deals for Q4 that got to come to the door, let's make sure we've uncovered that. What's their key business issue, that individual objective, that imperative, driver, KPI, whatever it is our prospects call the business issue. Then make sure we're connecting our solution to that first. Problems and challenges second. That sure bet question to make sure our prospect, that we've got the BI, the business issue, could be a question, open-ended question like this. At the end of the year, is this what your management measures your success on? Is there anything else? Here's the takeaway, because if we don't uncover the business issue, is that the reality is that not all problems are worth resolving. The ones that are worth resolving get funded. The ones worth resolving get resources. So when we're looking at our opportunities, we're looking to see, man, do we truly know that reason to change? Also remember that if we or the prospect is wrestling or struggling with identifying the impact of our solution, there's a good chance we've missed the business issue and just have a technical problem. Because there's so much more business value and personal value in resolving those business issues. It's a checkpoint for us. So when we look at the deals, it's just not getting to power, it's do we truly understand that number one reason to change? Next question for us. This one's kind of touchy. Some people struggle with this one, but it's truly asking ourselves and looking at our opportunities from our prospect's perspective is our solution differentiated? Sometimes we struggle with that ourselves as we look at our deals and say, are we truly different or differentiated from our competition or even the status quo? And that differentiation could be different based on each deal or the location you sell into. As it was once so eloquently put, it doesn't matter what we think the differentiation is. What matters is what each prospect thinks that we do better than our competitor or the status quo. And the answer can be both tangible and intangible. Because without this differentiation, we're competing on price as the only differentiator. And this is tough. extends the sales cycle, and impacts our margins. If they can't see a difference between what they're doing or competitors, nothing good comes from that. So here's my question for you. If I asked your customer, why you, what would they say? If we don't know what the prospect sees as their key differentiator, then we gotta walk them through some steps to get there. Number one, do we know who we're competing against? External or internal? Have we asked questions to uncover or surface unrecognized problems that we know we can fix better than our competitors? Those of you familiar with value selling, we're all about being problem experts. The more problems we can make visible that map to what we do uniquely from what our competitors or what they're doing currently, that's where that differentiation comes from. Have we flat out asked the client if they've seen anything better that will solve their number one priority or challenge? I'm cautioning you to be leery of answers like, yeah, hey, this is great, which often we accept as our prospect's version of them saying we're the best. It isn't the same. So I caution you to be careful. You can even be very direct by asking, do you think we're the best alternative at this point? Why? Have you seen anything? In other words, at a deal in Q4 and ones that we're looking to get in by the end of the quarter or advance by the end of the quarter to be a big deal for us in Q1, this becomes a big question for you. Not just get into power, not just understand the reason to change, but to truly test on whether we're differentiated in the eyes of our customer. Question number 7. So let's talk about personal motivation, or personal value as we call it. People are motivated by their reasons. Unfortunately, not ours. So the idea of personal motivation is to uncover and connect to their, we call it the WIFM. What's in it for me? So the key point I want to make about this topic, especially at this time of year, is that often at the end of the fiscal year, we tend to confuse our personal motivation with our prospects. What's our motivation? Well, of course, to close as much business as we possibly can. But over the years, often we've conditioned our prospects to wait until this time of year to buy from us. They've figured it out. And with some prospects, this works very well. And they've been able to extract tremendous discounts from the vendors they work with. However, if we look at our opportunities and we haven't uncovered that personal value for each prospect based on solving their business issues, they might not see that same sense of urgency that we got, regardless of the discounted price or increased deliverables that we tend to offer. But it's not too late. And we got 10 weeks. And I throw this out because the December 31st deadline is sometimes not relevant to our prospects. The idea is to connect to their motivation, not ours. So here's every one of our customers is asking this particular question. Is it worth it? What's the impact on my business if I'm successful? What's the business value? Because the reality is many of our clients have been burned by technology decisions they've made in the past, that the promises that were made to them didn't necessarily come true. So as we look at these opportunities at this time of the year, it's being very deliberate in understanding this and facilitating this. Has it been quantified? So asking ourselves if the customer has decided on the business value, the business impact they want from our services. Again, it doesn't matter what we think it ought to be. What's important here is that the value that will accrue to the business based on your differentiated solution. Many of my clients have these amazing, unbelievable ROI statements that they take into their clients, and they just can't believe their prospects drag their heels. Just because sales are so convinced of their own ROI. But sometimes the prospect just doesn't believe we have the capabilities to deliver that, to realize the savings, to realize the increases in productivity and efficiencies. So let's remember a few key ways we can impact the business. Connecting to an increase in revenue, connect to increasing efficiencies and productivity, connecting to how we can decrease their operating expenses, their cost of goods sold, their cost of goods manufactured. Sometimes it's the cost associated with not completing or meeting an objective or a project. It's these questions that they're asking themselves, whether we're in the room or not. Is it worth it? So my advice to you is ask. Lead with that open-ended question. What kind of impact are you looking for with our solution? And if they don't know, lead with the probing questions and focus on those 4 topics I just mentioned. Increasing revenues, increasing efficiency, decreasing costs, sometimes the opportunity cost of not getting it done. And lastly, it's customer specific. You might have sold to 8 different customers this year, and they probably all justified it in 8 different ways. So let's not assume we know the answer to this question based on what the last prospect told us. So just a quick recap here on where we're at. Are we at power? Are we truly engaged with that individual that can say yes now and has the budget authority to get it done? Do we truly understand our prospects' reason to change? What's their business issue? Is this top of mind? Is it worth the funding and the resources and the energy to get it done? Are we truly differentiated? Let's not kid ourselves. We've got external competitors, internal competitors. It's testing that and being overt and getting a confirmation from our customer that, yeah, we see it. You're the best thing we're looking at right now. What's the personal motivation? What's in it for the individual? And then lastly, is it worth it? What's the impact on the business, and does it justify moving forward? Is there enough impact in our ability to increase revenues, increase efficiencies, decrease our cost structure that justifies the release of the funds? I see a question here, and I think it's relevant to go ahead and address that. Questions on how to uncover the personal value from a champion or a customer. This is from Bob. Thanks for the question, Bob. You know, personal value is one of those, it's delicate. We've been doing this for a long, long time, and many people struggle like going, okay, what's in it for you? It could be a semantics game. I know some folks that just do it over dinner. Some folks, it's always, you can never really do it in a committee structure, but it's putting them at ease, especially if you've uncovered the business value first, which is kind of the key to this question. If you understand the impact on the organization, then it becomes, well, what can this do for you personally? Well, if we're successful here, what's the impact on you personally and your team? If we're successful here, what's this going to do for you? It's delicate, but more often than not, we find just asking the question in an environment that you're comfortable with, we're getting people are uncovering and opening up and providing that data to you. I know one guy, I love it, a friend I used to work with a long time ago, and he called me just excited going, I finally figured it out. He'd watched an old TV show called Columbo, and it was about a disheveled detective that always had one more question and disarmed his suspect so he could solve the crime in 30 minutes or less. Well, as he was walking away, Columbo always turned around and said, I got one more question. So this friend of mine, a rep who's been working for a technology company, called me and said, I figured it out, JB. He goes, I was going to the elevator the other day after a wonderful discovery call of about an hour, made some change, and just as about I was ready to put my finger on the elevator button to go down to the lobby, I turned around and slapped my forehead and said, you know what, I forgot to ask you a question. If we're successful here, what's this going to do for you personally? In other words, he asked a question that was unexpected. And you typically get, what do you get? A very honest answer. Well, they were in the lobby 45 minutes. He opened up on his kids, his career, his promotion, everywhere he's going to go. And he's been doing that ever since and having fun with it. But he asked it in a way that was genuine. It was authentic. It wasn't offensive. It's purely, what's this going to do for you? I can tell you just as many stories where we didn't know the personal value and weren't congruent with it, where one individual was getting ready to retire, wanted to work, 30-hour weeks. One solution was able to allow that individual to work 30 hours a week. The competitor had him working Saturdays and late 3 nights a week. Guess what? Guess who got the business? The one who was able to align to that personal value. So my takeaway for you, Bob, is make it authentic, make it genuine, and often it plays right off that business value. Because if you know the impact on the business, you can leverage that. So if we're able to deliver those results, if we're able to help you realize those results, what's this going to do for you? Another question from Philip, and then we'll get into the rest of the deal, is how do you differentiate ourselves, especially in a world where everybody looks the same? Well, we're very clear, not clear about that. Our process is pretty straightforward. Truly, that you understand that you do have differentiators, and it comes in a number of different places. Your services, your convenience, are you easier to work with than the other guys? Your terms and conditions. And then identifying what those capabilities, services, differentiators are, and then reverse engineering that and say, okay, if those are our capabilities, what problems can I make visible? What problems do I need to have out on the table and discuss with my prospect? Because once that problem's visible, it allows us to make a connection to those capabilities so that we all just don't look like we're the same, but we're introducing problems, challenges that map to our strengths. We're introducing problems and challenges that we know when we go into proof of concept, our competitors can't address as effectively as we can. So my takeaway on that is be a problem expert. And let me run a few things by that we didn't talk about. Many of our clients struggle with X, Y, and Z. Is that a challenge for you? Oh, tell me more. And now we've had a conversation around introducing some challenges. So when we start mapping our capabilities to that, we've got something to anchor that to. I'm going to run through the last few here, give you a little bit more sense. So we've talked about a few things there. Next question for us is, do we understand the prospect's process? I addressed this a little bit when we talked about power, but I want to hone on this a little bit more because it's important we understand each prospect's internal accepted way of doing business with their vendors. Often we build a written plan for what the sales cycle should look like, and then hope the prospect will ride along with our timeline without taking into account on how things work internally. It's crazy how many times we see this being missed. But there's always a lot going on. Multiple processes, decision-making, procurement, integration, legal. And often power is different in each one of those processes. So after you make the decision, what happens? How does this get executed? Who? How long? So we're asking ourselves a couple questions to understand our prospect's way of doing business. What are the phases they put their vendor through before they make a decision to buy? And what phase are we in right now? Once they select a vendor, what happens next? Who actually signs the deal? And last of all, how long does it take to get a purchase order issued? Often our prospects will sign a proposal, but won't allow you to book the order until we have that PO number. In some cases, this can take months if we're not dealing with the right people. I mean, it's happened to me. It's happened to all of us where we had the deal. We had the proposal. They couldn't get out of procurement. We couldn't get the PO, so that's why we're going through this now. We got 10 weeks to the end of the quarter. Let's make sure we understand what that process is and see if we can't get some of these processes going simultaneously. Can we get legal going right? We might still be in the negotiation phase on what services we're offering. Doesn't mean it should stop us or prevent us from getting legal going right now. Because if you get legal going in December, good luck. It's a busy, busy time for those folks looking at contracts, and it could stall the opportunity. So the question here is, do we truly understand their process? From value selling, and those of you that know our framework, the number one sales tool that you can use when you're not in front of the customer is the ROI Mutual Plan, because it focuses on results. It creates urgency. This isn't just a plan for us to get the order. It's more of a roadmap to how the customer is going to realize and see the benefits. It focuses on the customer and the ultimate result. We've done our homework and answered the question, is it worth it? And we know what that looks like from their perspective. This becomes our endpoint. And we are reverse engineering all those steps, both pre and post PO, to see that happen. So the question is, does the customer truly know what the plan is? It might be interesting. It might look really good, but it's irrelevant if the customer's not on the same page. So a couple questions to ask. Number one, hey, is there one? Number 2, is it jointly written? Not our plan. It's not a secret plan we're using with our team. It's a mutual plan. And does it mesh with the customer's internal processes and requirements they need to go through? Third question, have we crafted it to include all the steps we know we need to go through to win the business? Maybe we need to get access to other executives. Maybe we need to get a better understanding of the roadmap for 2016. Maybe we need to get access to the technical requirements within inside the house. Who else have they worked with? What are those elements that you need to see to get it done? It's not their plan. It's not our plan. It's a mutual plan. Is it in writing? This one's a killer. People, verbally all the time, they remember that. No, man, as soon as we walk out the door, they're on to the next project. Why is it critical to be in writing? Because then it becomes a document for us that we can both agree to. Does the end date reflect when the customer's business issue is resolved? In other words, rather than just focusing on the PO, which is what's important to us, the PO is not what our customer is investing in. They're investing in what happens after the PO. How are we going to execute and lower the risk factor that, yes, we can execute? And number 2, after we execute, when do I realize the benefits? We're so focused on that idea of the PO, but that's not what they're investing in. And then lastly, let's make sure that they own some of the steps while we own the other half. This way, the prospect accepts that they own some of this process as well, rather than just being a to-do list for us. Because once these steps are completed, you've earned the right to ask for the order. I tell you, we look at value selling at all the things that we do. And the more we do this, and we've been at this game a long time, is if we don't have this document, our deals are at risk. Studies have shown that the most nervous point in the customer journey and the buying journey for the customer is when it comes time to say yes, because it comes down as whether or not we can execute. So the plan is that written mutual document that allows us to say, okay, here are all the things we're going to do up to this point. Then after we say yes, here's how we're both going to execute together, and here's when you realize the value. Then lastly, they got to agree to it. So if we get it written, again, if it's just sitting in our desk and nobody's seen it, it's really not a plan. It's a written mutual plan. We want to get their confirmation on that. Third, 3 more questions here for you on deals in Q4. So right now, we're about 10 weeks out for those of us that live on the fiscal year, and for your calendars that live on the fiscal year. Timing's critical for all of us, but is it the right time for your prospect to buy? So a couple things here. The first bullet, they're year-end budget dollars that might need to be used. This is our dream. They've got a use it or lose it scenario where they've got some money in the budget and it has to be spent or they lose it. Easy, fun. We've all experienced that. I wish it was true. But then there's the other one where expenses need to be postponed. This just happened to me this week. I had something scheduled for a couple weeks, and they put a freeze on all travel. And as a result of that, it's been postponed to Q1, maybe Q2 of next year. Why do I share this with you? We just don't want to be surprised by this. And unfortunately, number 2 happens often more than number 1. So those are opportunities. We just got to be prepared to be creative to get beyond that. Have you looked at that budget? Are there other unspent dollars otherwhere that we might be able to shift? 2 people in the last 30 days that found business that wasn't there before. One was a really small order. One was a kind of larger order, but they got creative with it. They just didn't say, okay, that's great, let's go to Q1. They looked at other potential places to find some money. The question is, you got to ask the question. You got to get creative, because sometimes the timing isn't critical for us. It also might not be critical for your customer. Are there unaddressed objections? Man, most salespeople look at objections as the bane of their existence. Not sure you're the right solution. Not sure you can actually deliver on what you're promising. You guys cost way too much. We've heard it all the time. And they can sometimes be real showstoppers. So I think over time, many folks have been conditioned to be afraid of them. But I'm a firm believer they can be extremely huge buying signals as well. So learn to embrace them. As with all good things in sales, being prepared is the key, especially if you know you're going to hear them. If you're fighting with price all the time, you better be prepared to handle that, to counter that objection, thinking about what's going to come up so you can be prepared to address it. So if it comes up all the time, why aren't we more proactive? I don't have the answer to that one. It's all about being prepared and knowing where they're coming from. But when we get the objective, we get kind of a 5-step process that seems to work extremely well. Step number 1, embrace the objection. Rejoice. Be happy you got it. Because without it, chances are you never know about it. And thus, your chances you're going to close this deal go down tremendously. So when we hear it, rather than get nervous or freak out, embrace the objection. Second, always clarify it. Make sure you understand it. Play it back. Oftentimes, we go right into addressing to what we think the objection is, only to find out we're addressing the wrong one. So it's just taking a moment to say, so let me make sure I heard you correctly. And play it back to clarify what you've heard on before we move on. And then we diagnose it. And we, again, we're all about the value selling framework and looking at the opportunity through the lens of what we call the qualified prospect formula. And just restating to know that we haven't missed anything. Because the idea of the framework is to suggest that during the course of an opportunity, we've had conversations and we've created a vision match. We created and confirmed our differentiation. We understand the value of the business impact if we're successful. We've uncovered and confirmed who the decision makers are and what the decision-making process is. And we've agreed to a sequence of events and put them in a written mutual plan that not only gets the PO in the door, but provides the roadmap for the customer to realize the value. So when we're diagnosing that opportunity, if I've truly qualified my prospect, I'm just checkpointing. So, Bob, I'll use you as an example again. So, Bob, let me just make sure I understand correctly. When you and I spoke earlier, you said your number 1 challenge was increase revenues by X% by the end of the year. You said some of the problems that you were faced with were these technology challenges, these process challenges. We agreed we were the best solution as a result of. You told me the impact on your business was this, and that was enough to move forward. We agreed that the decision-making process was this. What have I missed? In other words, we're trying to find that area that we might have missed in the course of our qualification process. Because once we've done that, we can isolate it and then address it. Isolate it and saying, okay, before I address your objection around price, your objection around the risk of moving forward, is there anything else that would prohibit us from moving forward? Why isolate it? Well, I'm sure many of you on this call could tell the same story I could, is that the objection might be a smokescreen, just a stall tactic, so that we can address it and they go, oh, no, what I really had was this objection. And now we get in this endless loop of just on and on, always seem to be defending ourselves. So embrace it, clarify, make sure you got it, diagnose it, then isolate it, and then go for it. Address the objection. Again, as a professional, and we know those objections that we're coming up with, is being prepared, being succinct, being practiced in how you actually address that objection. But on these deals for Q4, make sure there are no surprises on that. Which leads me to our last one, number 1 in our countdown of 10. Sounds pretty obvious, but could we be blindsided? This is very important, especially given that many of our clients, their fiscal year closes at the same time. Many people are on vacation or they're focused on family and holidays. So the question we need to ask ourselves is, do we really know our prospects' personal schedules and their corporation schedule over the next few weeks? And one client, I mentioned earlier, legal gets so crazy in December that if they don't have the legal agreement on their desk by the middle of November, it's a Q1 deal. I have another client, they close their books December 10th of every year. So if you don't have that deal done by December 10th, that's a Q1 deal. And the reason I make this number 1 is that it's better to know that today than having to make a call to our manager at the end of the year. And this happens more often than you think. I can show you too many stories over the years that the deal got stalled because we didn't ask this question. So the question to ask is there a cutoff date? Because the idea is if we can find this out today, then for the deals in our fill cards, then we can make adjustments. So there we are. Simple. Take a look at your forecast. Are we at power? Do we know the reason to change? Are we truly differentiated? All these are from the customer's perspective, not what we think, but what we know and have uncovered and confirmed. Do we know the personal motivation? Is it worth it? Do we understand the prospect's buying process internal? How does it get through the system? Does a prospect know and own the written mutual plan, not only get the PO in the door, but to execute on getting the solution in place and having them realize the outcome of that? Is the timing critical for our prospect? Are there any unaddressed objections that we don't know about? And lastly, could we be blindsided? So what can you do? Here we are. You guys have been very cool and carved out a good 35, 40 minutes with us today. So what's next? Well, take a look at your pipeline. What are those top deals, those important deals, those critical deals that you need to get in the door? And then ask yourself the questions and be honest with yourself. I'm not trying to convince anybody of things that we don't know, but really rejoice over any gaps or holes or missing components that we might have. Because at this point, that's what it's all about. And then we get to go to work. And it's better to identify those gaps now and not at the end of the year. Let's see here. Let's open up for some Q&A. Erica, Krista, I think there's a question here from Erica on objections. Can you give an example of how an objection you mentioned is a buying signal? That's a great question. Maybe we've done our discovery. We've uncovered that the business issue is to increase market share in a new territory. An objection you might hear is, we just don't feel that you're the ones that can help us make this happen. We've identified what that is. What that indicates is, yeah, they're going to do it one way or another, but the objection is around whether we're the ones that can help them get there. So when I hear something like that, I'm thinking, okay, they're going to do something. They just haven't selected to do us yet. There's a buying signal that says, okay, there's enough fear, but the risk factor is just too high that we might be able to address. Is there an objection that you hear on a regular basis you'd like to possibly jot down that I'm not sure that was a perfect example for you? Pricing is always an interesting one. You guys just cost way too much. Well, when you begin to diagnose that, when I see pricing is too much, when we tend to look at our framework, we kind of go one of two places. Price is too much because we haven't uncovered what the impact would be, enough business value that would justify that price, or we might be dealing at the wrong level. The amount of money we're asking for, or what a proposal is aimed to do, we might be dealing with somebody lower in the organization that might not be as important to them. And it's at least a signal to us that, we need to get somewhere else in the organization because the person I'm dealing with isn't the one that's going to be able to say yes to this. So some it's a true buying signal. Some are an indication that, we're in the wrong place and there's missing gaps in my opportunity that's never going to allow us to close the deal until I address those. All right. I'm going to click on Q&A here. Quite a few. Price. Budget is an objection. This one's from Erica. Thanks, Erica. Budget's a crazy one. Look at it right now. I think a lot of clients are in budget season for next year. September, October, they're furiously putting numbers in a spreadsheet going, this is what we think we're going to be addressing next year. And I don't know who's got the crystal ball that can look out 9 months and be totally accurate, but they're looking at the big rocks. They're looking at the business issues that they're trying to address, and those are what's getting funded. Those are the dollars that are getting into the budget. But things come up, especially in the course of our discovery, and as we start to present and engage with our clients, that there are some things that they didn't realize, or the impact that our solution has a bigger impact than what they had budgeted for. So budgets are real, but budgets aren't necessarily written in stone. Now, I can't tell you how many deals I've been involved with where there was no budget, but the deal got executed on because there was a dialogue. There was an agreement that we knew what the business issue is. They understood the capabilities, and there was an impact on the business that had a bigger impact than other initiatives they were looking at. My visual is you think about a CFO, and he's in his back office, and he's got a stack of 20 proposals. And every one of those proposals he'd love to say, or she would love to say no to. But the reality is, if there's a business case there, whether it's budget or not, it's the shell game. They're kind of moving things around. So when people tell me budget, they don't have the budget. I usually go one of two places. Who are you talking to? Because executives are really more like squashing the problem and not just putting a Band-Aid on it. And number two, what's the impact? Are you truly understanding the business use of our client? Is there enough impact on the business to say yes? Here's one from the Bosch, I think I said that correctly. Does a delayed lack of client response to a final contract indicate that we haven't found the right vision? I don't think so. It goes back to that timing issue. They might have said yes, but things come up. They might have said, we're going to make a decision by Friday, and then Friday comes and they haven't made a decision, and we spend a very long weekend second guessing ourselves. Well, the reality is there might have been a management shift. There might have been another issue that come up that they had to address at that time. That idea to hit the pause button, be confident. If you've done the steps along the way, and we talk about qualification as a continuous process. Qualification doesn't happen once a month or once a quarter. We're always looking at our deals and going, okay, are we aligned? Do we understand the impact? Are we with the right people? Are we on track with the plan? Delays happen. It's not a perfect answer, but often that's just the way of the world. But I think sometimes we just have to take a deep breath, make sure we've got open communications, the trust that if anything goes sideways or anything gets a delay, that they're willing to communicate with us. I had an opportunity just 2 months ago. I was working with an AM, and it's August. His manager says, we got to get this deal in August. Well, the reality is, half the client's organization was on holiday. And the woman in contracts wasn't due back from maternity leave for another 2 weeks. I don't care how good we are. We weren't going to get the deal. Now, the deal happened in the third week in September, but it didn't necessarily go away. There were some timing issues with that. What about a trial close? Is another question from Carl. I love that. Always. Is there anything else you're working on that has a bigger impact than what we're working on? Is this enough capability for us to consider moving forward with us? If we satisfy the requirements with this demonstration as proof of concept, would you be willing to move forward with us? Absolutely. In the value selling framework, the idea of confirmation is always kind of a trial close. I'll do one or two more here. What about checking customer satisfaction throughout the process? Yes. And yes. And yes. We talk about in value selling some fundamental principles. And at the core of that is this whole concept of people buy from people and trust and rapport. Because if you don't have that trust and rapport, you're not going to get very far. I don't care how good you are. I don't care how fabulous your solution is. So the idea of just checking along the way just builds credibility. Are we on the right path? Are we communicating with you the way that you expect? Did this meet your expectations? Is there anything else you're looking at for that has a bigger impact? If we do this, what's it going to do for you? All of those are kind of hand in hand with your trial close is checking about client satisfaction. Boy, a lot of great questions here. Our interpretation, this one's again from Carl, our interpretation of sales is a systematic process of questions and probing to help customers meet their needs in a cost-effective and timely process. creating in win-win scenarios. Agreed? Turn it into a bumper sticker, my man. That is absolutely. We're not selling. It's a mutual dialogue. It's us moving forward together and asking some questions to understand from their perspective what's going on. We look at this and it's all about shining a light on them, asking those questions, not pitching, not selling, because they're not necessarily waking up every day going, man, I hope I get a call from a sales guy. They're waking up going, oh man, I've got issues I got to address. There are results I have to deliver. And the more we know about that, the better off we are in aligning our capabilities to that. And how do we do it? Well, you can ask them open-ended questions, get their take on what's going on, probe a little bit, introduce some challenges they didn't think about or share with you that mapped what we do. And always, always, always confirm and play it back, with the ultimate confirmation being that written mutual plan. Let's see, here's one. Here's one from Jason. I'm going to address this last one. There are a couple other here that if I don't get to them, I promise you I will answer those in an email after that. This one is from Jason. Can you talk more about, is it in writing? What do you mean by that? How can that be leveraged to close the deal if we feel like we're losing the deal? Well, in our vernacular, what do we mean by writing? Well, let me give you this scenario. Jason, you and I have just gotten together. We spent an hour having this wonderful discovery call. You were open. You engaged with me. I understand your high-level business issues. We've talked about what capabilities you're looking for. You've articulated the results you're expecting if we're successful. You've given me kind of an outline of, how we're going to have to get this done and who we need to be in front of, the decision-making process. And then the call ends. And we're back at our office, and Jason, you're on to the next fire. Well, what happens? Well, often we say, okay, I'll get back to you in a couple of weeks, and then we get back in a couple of weeks, and that's a lot of time in between the time you and I engaged. So we say, you got to put it in writing. So Jason, what I'm going to do at the end of our call here is I'm going to wrap it up. Thank you for taking the time. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go back to the office. I'm going to summarize what you and I talked about, just to make sure we're on the same page. And then, please, feel free to edit, change, add, delete as you see fit. And then I'm going to go back to the office. I'm going to capture our dialogue. I'm going to send it an email or a letter if that's the way you prefer it. And there's not going to be any pricing in it, and there's not going to be any product in it. It's going to be a summary of what you and I spoke about. Because that in itself is a differentiator. Studies will show you that executives are frustrated with salespeople because they just don't listen. They got all the questions, but they don't listen. So the idea of is it written is taking what we learned and going, Jason, let me just play it back to you, and here are the sequence of events we talked about. How's this helping when we're losing the deal? Well, there's no perfect way to turn around, but I think what it would justify or demonstrate to your prospect is that, you know what, this guy's paying attention. This guy knows what yeah, I am challenged with that. Yes, those are the results I'm looking for. And we often find not only does it clarify things and start to eliminate some of the misunderstanding, but it's a differentiator for us. Because we're just not sending a proposal with numbers on it going, here you go. It's more like, you know what, I'm in the business of helping you understand and help you better run your business. So why is it writing? I think it's a tremendous differentiator for us. Actually, and I'll take you on the Value Sign website. If you go to some of the e-newsletters, the Voice of Value newsletters, there's a couple tremendous articles there, and one of them is how to write the written mutual plan. If you don't find it there, just drop me an email, and I'll send you some ideas on how to make that happen. Is this another way of saying success criteria, the mutual plan? Yeah, that's another question. Is this another way of saying success criteria? It's I guess it's more reinforcing that. It's if we've done our discovery and understand what business value is, this is kind of that blueprint on how we're going to get there. So a mutual plan's got a lot of benefits to you. Is it one way of saying success criteria? That's one thing. But I think there are tremendous benefits, not just to us, but to the customer. I mean, after we leave the office, they don't know how to tell the story of the dialogue we had. So it becomes an internal selling document. It becomes ability for them to clarify when and what resources are going to be delivered, how. Even how, I don't think our customers know how to buy. I'm not trying to say they're ignorant, but they don't buy the capabilities we have on a weekly basis. Well, we sell them on a weekly basis. So the ability to give them a blueprint on how, a best practice on not only how to make the decision, but then how to put it into play, man, that's powerful. And not buried in a 48-page proposal that's got a number of prices on it, but just a very simple confirmation of what we know. Okay, so a couple of house cleaning items here. At the end of today's webinar, following this content will be made available later today to view on demand, as well as download this on our website under resources/webinars. I encourage you to download and take a look at other resources we have to offer as well. These 10 questions are there. I encourage you to take a look at some of your opportunities and run them by there. Also, go to the eStore. Some really, really cool stuff on there. You know, there's a book, Driving Sales Up One Conversation at a Time. It's a great little read. You know, it's 150 pages, and it's not just a theory book. It's kind of a field guide. There are a lot of ways on how to have the value conversation, how to handle objections, how to put those plans together, some of the questions to ask to better drive those conversations. There's also some other tools on there, again, and a full complementary library of some of these webinars we've held in the past, as well as newsletters as well. Lastly, save the date. November 19th will be our next webinar, and you'll be getting invitations to that very shortly, so keep an eye out on why sales training typically fails. A lot of folks have pursued the effort of sales training that's failed spectacularly. Well, there's some real reasons for that. We know what it works and why it works, just as much on some of the common causes on why we see those type of efforts fail. So join us. And with that, I thank you. I know that everyone's running 90 miles an hour these days, and for you to carve out 45, 50 minutes of your time, I appreciate that. I encourage you to reach out and connect. You can find me on LinkedIn. My email is here. If there's a question you'd like to take offline, I would embrace and welcome the contact. And with that, best of luck to you in Q4, and continued success to you. Happy holidays and all that other good stuff. That's a wrap. Lindsay, Chris, you want to open that up?